I'm glad that this is an open conversation. I'm glad that this isn't something that's attempting to be swept under the rug as if it didn't take place, because it did, and it's not the first time that it's taken place in a Ryder Cup. The concern is the fact that, and I realize that there's a responsibility amongst the fans, and some of the video, in fairness, when people were yelling "F you, Rory," etc., there were other people in the gallery that you could hear telling them to stop, to not behave in such a way. We knew the story of the MC in the first tee that started such a chant, etc. So there were instances where it was completely and totally out of control. But as Rory referred to, the vast majority of the crowd did behave, and they were there for fun, and they were there for the right reasons. A couple of things that I wanted to clear up and mention. One of them is when people say, "Oh, it's the exact same when they're in Europe." It isn't the same when they're in Europe. I'm at all those Ryder Cups, and in the European Ryder Cups in particular, I'm actually between the ropes. So I'm between the fans and the players. And I can't think of any instances where there has been as blatant disregard for propriety, courtesy, and respect for a competitor as has taken place at some American Ryder Cups. So I guess what I'm getting at with this is what I'd mentioned earlier in the program, which is it's easy to blame the crowd. The easy path is to say, well, that's just New York. I grew up in that area. I don't think that's a fair assessment. New York sports fans are a demanding lot. There's no doubt about that. Tough. They know the game. You fill in which sport you want. They know the game. Right? But to just paint them and say, no, this is exactly what was going to happen with New York fans. I don't buy it. I believe exactly what happened was set up by engaging the masses in such a way. Every single question was, well, how do you think you're going to do with that New York sports fan? They were brought into the role that some of them, a very small percentage, assumed. And to the idea where people say, whether you're talking about a regular tour event or in this case, you're talking about a Ryder Cup, when people say, well, why can't you control when people act in a fashion that they shouldn't, whether they're yelling something at the moment of impact? The concern there isn't so much that they're yelling something stupid, which they do often, those that want to insert themselves. But the concern is at one point, either with deliberacy or under the influence of alcohol or whatever it is, that they get their timing off and it impacts a player's performance. There's been concern in that regard now with the proliferation of sports betting, for example. Will someone deliberately engage in a behavior to impact the circle of competition? And a lot of people kind of shake their head and go, well, that's not something you really can control. Oh, really? What would we hear from Augusta? Hold my Dom Perignon. It can be done. And it should be done. Not only for the players, certainly, but also for the other 99.99% that are maybe have their kids there with them and they're there to enjoy a great competition. They're going to cheer for the good shots by their team. They're also going to cheer at a Ryder Cup by the bad shots on the other side. That's part of that competition. I get that. But vulgar attacks and more, that's something that really needs to be looked at.